YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I just saw that Shawn the Book Maniac posted another video in his alphabet soup series. Today he's up to F. I want to do the tag. I want to do the tag right away. I don't have books yet because I haven't watched the video. I haven't even looked at the prompts. I'm going to try to do this without a script, without having seen the questions really. So my computer is right here and we're just going to go through the questions as unscripted, as spontaneous as we can. No, you can't cough. There is a COVID-19 scare. Anybody who coughs, we have to put them 6 feet away. Okay, no more coughing. Obviously, I won't have books to show you because, well, I could probably look at the shelf for books. But what I'll do is I'll tell you the books as I see the prompts, and then I'll insert video clip maybe of me showing you the book afterwards if I need to show you books. So let's do this F is for fiction tag without having seen the questions. Number 1, F is for fictionalize. Any or all of these. A, your take on autofiction, or B, the writer you'd like to write a novel based on your life, and or a work of autobiographical fiction you'd recommend. So my understanding of autofiction is it's an abbreviated form of autobiographical fiction. So when a writer releases a book that is supposed to be fictional but is based on a real story, usually some form of autobiography, so something that has happened in the writer's life and they've fictionalized parts of it to make it more of a story, more maybe of a marketable story. As a writer myself, I have done that. I have, to date, my my only published work right now is a short story collection entitled It's Complicated, short stories about long relationships. And in that story collection, I assembled scenes and snippets from my life and made fiction around some of those stories. So it is a genre, it is a real, it's probably a popular technique with a lot of writers. And I suppose the difference between autofiction and any other kind of fiction is just the amount of the autobiographical inclusions. I read a book recently, Where Reasons End by Yiyun Lee, and I read that because I was judging the BookTube prize, and I suppose that book was based on the writer's real life because the writer Yiyun Lee, she lost her son to suicide, and the book was about a woman who was also a writer whose son had committed suicide as a teenager. And I suppose she wrote the book to maybe process some of the grief that she felt, some of the helplessness that she experienced on losing her son. And also because the author herself had attempted suicide, I think. This was probably her way of working through some of the questions, some of her thoughts, some of her grief, just in general. Grief and how you manage it. So that's just the work of autofiction that comes to mind as an example of this genre. It's not something that I necessarily gravitate towards, even though, like I said, it's a technique that I have used in my own writing. But I think a lot of authors use their own experiences to fuel their writing. Yeah, it's probably just varying on the degree in which they use that. Other examples of autofiction that I can think of, The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris, which I also read to judge a BookTube prize last year. And in that one, the author explained in an author's note rather, that she tried to pen the story based on interviews that she had with the main character, a real Holocaust survivor who had been recruited as a tattooist in Auschwitz and was forced to tattoo fellow Jews. And one of the things that you could see that the author really tried to stay true to the memories that the real life person had shared with her. but I thought that it impacted her ability to write the fiction in a negative way. So that's the example of autofiction that I can think of, those two right now. And the question is, my take on autofiction. It's good sometimes, it's useful sometimes, it might even be fun sometimes, and I wish I could think right now of an example of autofiction that I really liked that I could share with you, and I know I'll remember it afterwards. But moving on to the next question, because that was really long. The part B of that question is the writer you'd like to write a novel based on your life. Me. I'd like to write a novel based on my own life at some point, but other than that, I think do you want me to spank you? I tell you to stop scratching yourself. Stop scratching yourself. Yes, stop scratching yourself. Stop scratching yourself. Don't give me that look. Don't give me that look. Okay, that look is fine. The author who I would like to write a novel based on my life, maybe. There's so many authors that I could think of. Some of them are no longer in this world. Aside from myself, Eleanor Catton, because she wrote one of the most complex works of fiction that I have read to date, and that's The Luminaries, which won her the Booker Prize in 2013, 2014. I think that I would love to see how she would take all the different parts of my life and weave it into that spherical, that rotating sphere that she composed in The Luminaries. Yeah. And see, a work of autobiographical fiction that I'd recommend. Oh, so there is that actual question. Let me think about that. I'll get back to you on that question. Question 2, F is for farm. A great book set on a farm or about farming and or one you want to read. Funny, because I was just thinking about a book that was set on a farm recently. Do you have a recommendation? So my parents live on a farm in Jamaica. My dad does a lot of farming. So are you thinking about the books that were set on Daddy's farm? Grandpa's farm. Grandpa. My daddy, your grandpa. Harvest by Jim Crace is set on a farm. It was a contender for the Man Booker Prize back when it was the Man Booker Prize. Earlier in the 2000s, earlier in the 2010s. You just like to look at yourself. Jim Crace's Harvest is an excellent book that is set on a farm. I can't go through the synopsis. I'm sorry. She's distracting me. She's distracting me. Jim Crace's Harvest is set on a farm in the medieval times. It includes people who are living on kind of like a plantation style, but they are not slaves. They're not enslaved. They're like serfs. And some new people come on the scene, and their livelihoods are threatened because they think that these new people, there is mechanical work happening outside. I'm sorry for that. The people who are already living on the farm, they are threatened by the presence of these new people, and the novel goes through what happens when resentment builds and these people are being blamed for things that they haven't done, and other people who would be witnesses to prove that the newcomers are innocent refuse to speak up because they obviously their livelihoods are threatened as well. I'm sorry for the noise. Question number 3, F is for Frank, Franz, Franny, or a writer you recommend or want to read whose first and or last name starts with F. Bonus points for both first and last name. F. Okay, let's think about that one. Oh. First and last name starts with F. F. Scott Fitzgerald was The Great Gatsby. Yay, I got the bonus points. I got the bonus points. I did. I got the bonus points. And we also found Helen Fielding's Bridget Jones's Diary. Fielding starts with F. And we have two books by Joshua Ferris. One of these was nominated for the Booker Prize a few years ago. This is To Rise Again at a Decent Hour. This was a really interesting read and a book that I plan to revisit at some point. I would like to reread it just because I feel like I didn't get all the things from this book, but I really liked it. It was a complex story about a dentist who... I don't know. And then I have another book by him. Then we came to the end, and I absolutely love this cover. It is supposed to be something about an office. There are all these post-its, and this was his debut work, and I've owned this copy for a couple of years now, and I still haven't read it. So I'm hoping to get to Joshua Ferris' other book at some point. And then J.G. Farrell, he won the Booker Prize twice for two of the books in this Empire trilogy that he wrote. This is the book that didn't win the Booker Prize. This is the third book, The Siege of Krishnapur. No, this is the Singapore Group. The Siege of Krishnapur and Troubles he won the Booker Prize for. And this was the third book in the series, but he didn't win for that one. This is also the bigger one. So I've read the two Booker winning novels, and I also own this non-Booker winning third installment. So hoping to get to that one as well. Number 4, F is for the love of God, an experience of extreme exasperation while reading about a book in its entirety or a smaller section thereof. I'm gonna say Frankenstein by Jeanette Winterson just because I read that recently, and the title also starts with F, which you don't have to choose books where the title starts with F, but I thought it would be apropos for this prompt. There are some things about that book that drove me crazy. Just I felt like the author went overboard with her reporting of the erotic descriptions and the sexual descriptions, isn't their word, innuendos. There were really unsubtle descriptions of sex, and I don't like that. Another book that drove me insane recently, The Wives by Taryn Fisher. Another book where the author's last name starts with F. Read that, didn't like how the author tried to use mental illness as a psychological twist, and she just kind of turned me off with that book. And yeah, that's where we're going. Okay, you really want to touch the books. Okay, here you go, touch the books. Then F is for Find, a book with lots of F's in the title, bonus points for more than 2. I could think of several books right here that have 2 F's. Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. F is for Father, that's prompt number 6, a work of fiction in which fatherhood is a central concern. Ta-Nehisi Coates' The Water Dancer comes to mind immediately because it was one of the first, well, one of the only books that I can think of right now where the main character is an African-American man enslaved living on a plantation where his paternity is not in question. His mother was a slave and his father was the slave owner, plantation owner, slave owner. And this plantation owner acknowledges that he is the boy's father. He calls him his son, even though the son is still a slave. Very interesting to me because while we know from history and see lots of examples of black women, slave women being raped by overseers and slave masters, slave owners, we don't get too many instances of the fathers actually taking ownership of their children. So that was interesting for me in that book. Prompt number 7, F is for Finland, a book set in or by a Finnish author you'd recommend or would like to try. Find out about one if need be because it will be fun. Finland, I can think of Tove Jansson's, the summer book. Tove Jansson is right here. I read this book for Women in Translation at some point. Tove Jansson she was born in Helsinki into Finland's Swedish-speaking minority. Yes, so the summer book, this is an NYRB edition, and I bought this a few years ago, and I've read it twice, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I haven't read anything else by her, and she's a Nobel Prize winning novelist, so would like to read something else from her at some point. And F is for Fangirl, a new or new to you writer you're really excited about. If I am fangirling right now, it's about Hilary Mantel. She wrote the Thomas Cromwell trilogy, Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies, and the third book, Mirror and the Light, was just released a few weeks ago. I read Wolf Hall before, reread it recently and loved it. Hope to finish Bring Up the Bodies at sometime maybe this month. And The Mirror and the Light I'm hoping to get to very soon, because the first two books won the Booker Prize, and everyone assumes that the third book is also going to be a shoo-in for this year's Booker. So we'll see if that happens. But I'm really excited about her writing, and she's someone that I want to read everything that she's published. So I've started collecting her titles. Haven't collected the books yet, but started researching books from her that I want to buy, and right now I'm just fangirling about her if there's anyone. Prompt number 9, F is for Fling. You loved one book by this writer but nothing else. Interesting. It's really interesting because I'm not sure that I have a lot of authors that I've read several of their books and I've only liked one. There have been a few authors where I've liked some of their books more than others, but I can't think of an example where I loved one book by that writer but nothing else. Oh, well, Jonathan Safran Foer. I really liked Everything Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. Great book. Everything is Illuminated, I didn't like as much. And I own his other book, Eating Animals, which I think is a non-fiction look at veganism. And I haven't read that yet. So I'm going to say Jonathan Safran Foer just because his name also starts with F. And love this one, didn't like this one, and haven't even felt impressed to read this one. I mean, I've put it on a couple of TBR lists, but I haven't wanted to grab it and just read it right away. So I'm gonna say Jonathan Safran Foer was a little bit of a fling for me. And then prompt number 10, F is for Friends, a novel that satisfyingly explores friendship. How could I not choose Elena Ferrante's My Brilliant Friend? The Neapolitan novels are 4 books that explore the relationship between two girls who meet as explores a relationship between two friends who meet as little girls, and it traverses their entire lives from the time they are kids to the time they are grandparents. And I read all the books, and each book was interesting, but as a sum, as a total, as a series, the Neapolitan novels are one of the best examples that I have ever seen of fiction that is completely engrossing, that is Bildungsroman because it traverses the entire lives of these characters, and I loved it. And of course, Elena Ferrante's last name starts with F. So I think I did a great job with finding authors whose names begin with F, even though that's not a requirement. And then prompt number 11, F is for Far and Wide, tag feverishly. So I'm gonna link in the description box down below people that I'm gonna tag, and I'll contact them and let them know that they've been tagged. But off the top of my head, I'm going to say, I just haven't been on BookTube enough recently to You know what? I'm tagging everyone who watches this video. If you want to do the tag, feel free to do it. But I'm also going to leave in the description box down below a few people that I'm tagging specifically. And just in case Shawn hasn't tagged them, let's see. I will tag Doris from All the Books. I'll tag Heidi from My Reading Life. I'll tag Didi from Brown Girl Reading. And Tati, musical Tati. What's Tatiana's YouTube channel? I can't recall. But I'm tagging those people specifically just because Shawn said I should tag people. But anyone else who wants to do this tag, feel free to do it. And yeah, we went a really long time. Sorry about that. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. I'd love to chat with you in the comments down below. If you want to talk about any of these books that I have mentioned, and some of them I haven't read, right? Some of the books I talked about, some of the books that I mentioned today, I haven't read. But if I mentioned a book that I have read that you want to talk to me about, I'd love to chat with you down there. And of course, we'll be back next time for another video. Until then, let's chat in the comments and happy reading. Bye. Say bye. Say bye. Wave. Say bye. I know you want to get back to your book stack. Huh? It would bring me even more joy if you were actually reading these books, but we'll take what we can get right now.